Hugh, let's come back to you and let's pick up with a few more of our emails. Stephen writes in and says, "Wake up, Hugh. We're at the beginning phase of the biggest bull market in history. Here is why. Most American companies have shown increasing earnings by cutting costs to the bone. They are now lean and mean. Together with a weak dollar, they will outsell most of the industrial economies. These companies will show stellar earnings."
There's a grain of truth in that, which I think is certainly with regard to the dollar. The dollar is incredibly cheap. I think sterling is incredibly cheap. And therefore, as an American company, your costs are definitely pared down to the bone. Your currency is cheap. Why not? The beginning of a stellar bull market, a generational bull market, I think that is misplaced. And the reason why I say that is, again, I just think we've tapped ourselves out. The elephant in the room that we haven't discussed, I'm afraid it's boring, but it's still a fact, is that the leverage, the inheritance, if you will, of debt being 4 times, so being $53 trillion when the economy in America is $14 trillion. That's what I fear. In 1921, John Maynard Keynes wrote a book, a little pamphlet called The Economic Consequences of the Peace. So after the Treaty of Versailles, the French and the British had demanded that the Germans pay reparations, and they demanded 2.5 trillion US dollars, if we put it in our money, in our monetary terms. Too great. That legacy of debt squashed the vitality of the German, indeed the European economy, and created the distortions and the horrors of the 1920s and subsequently the 1930s. I think here we are 1 year on from the bailout, and really we should be talking about the economic implications of the bailout was that we left in place that legacy of debt, and having done nothing with regard to that, it is pressing down harder and harder, and presently the brunt of that is being borne at the individual level, at the household level. Presently the corporate sector has kind of escaped that, but they're joined at the hip. You can run, but if your partner is troubled, you can't run very fast. So I still dispute the notion of maybe of a next 20-year generational bull market. I think we're in a generation where returns disappoint until we deleverage the economy.
Maybe this is a naive view, but hasn't the reduction in interest rate lightened that burden of debt? So even as the carried by many households, the fact that we've seen a of interest rates across Western economies means that the costs, at least, of that burden have lightened for manoeuvre.
I think that's an excellent point, but that is specific to certain countries. It would be the UK, and they would be especially in Australia and the UK. Mortgages are floating through immediately. That is not the case in America. Financed off the 30-year government security year. And again, one of the misgivings is, rubbish, and fair enough, with regard to what happens if the 30-year US government yields 5. Watch that in an environment of this great